getting search engines to pick you up and get your content to the top of Google is a great coup. But what if there was a simple tool that actually gets you in front of the media and gets the media calling you to do interviews? I mean, that's what we all want, right? When you're doing PR, you want to get picked up by the media. You want those interviews. And I love my guest today because he's got a great tool that's going to help make that happen. Hi, I'm Melanie Benson, and I'm America's leading small business optimizer. And this weekly podcast is geared towards helping you learn what it really takes to run a successful business and do one thing: make the business perform 10 times better while working less. And so I love bringing people in who've got a great tool to make that happen. Now, our guest today is Rob Burns, and I got to tell you, I've been hearing about Rob and Rob's tool and Rob this and PRReach and all this stuff, and then I got to know what Rob was really about. So Rob's the president of PRReach.com, and it's the world's first viral social video press release company, and I've been able to see some of it in action and hear how well it works. So, and because this is a newer company, I thought, what greater way to learn how to get a startup company to perform fast than to hear from someone who's doing it themselves. So hey Rob, how's it going?
Hey, how you doing? Thanks for having me on.
Sure. Hey, I like the waves in the background. Makes me feel like I'm right there in San Diego with you.
Yeah, this is just the beach out back, right?
Oh yeah. You know, if you ever watch Giada De Laurentiis cooking shows where she's got her fake beach in the background and everybody's like, oh my God, she's living on the beach. She's got the dream. Then if you actually drive by her house and you go, oh, she doesn't live anywhere by the beach.
It's like in Bakersfield or something.
Exactly. Bakersfield. I grew up there. It does not have a beach.
Yeah.
So do you actually surf or anything?
Yeah, absolutely.
Do you? Now, are you boogie boarder or surfer, paddle boarder?
Surfing, and I've really gotten more into stand-up paddling.
Yeah.
And not really surfing stand-up paddling, but just kind of just doing for fitness stuff, just doing kind of long paddle trips and things like that.
Yeah.
So it's kind of my new favorite thing. So
it's the new rage. I know our friend Natalie's doing that too, and I'm like, okay,
yeah.
gotta learn something new.
Go down and do some paddling with it.
So Robert, since you and I have been getting to know each other, you've been getting PRReach out there in the world. Why don't you tell us a little bit what was the catalyst behind creating a company that I think's got a lot of competition out there?
Yeah, well, I've been in the internet marketing and SEO space probably 12, 15 years. And, a lot of it is kind of, especially with the SEO part is, you figure something out and, you kind of capitalize on it and, then you get a lot of traffic and you make a lot of money, and then all of a sudden, the search engines, change something and then it doesn't work anymore. And then, you lose all your money and then, and then you have to start all over again and figure out a new thing. And, and in some respects, even with internet marketing, because, you might have a product, a lot of people that, are really product launch based, I was kind of behind the scenes on a lot of those things. And it's, you would just do this inordinate amount of work to get to this one spot, and then you may or may not make, once the launch happens, you may or may not make a lot of money. And then if you do, then you got to, then you need to figure out, what's your next thing, and it's just kind of perpetual. And I wanted to look at my next thing as more like a brick and mortar business. So I wanted to, I still love internet marketing and I still love marketing. So I wanted to kind of take that perspective of, treat it, just like a regular, real business that you would have, whether you were online or not.
I like how you're saying real business.
Yeah.
Because there is this all this energy out there about do you have a real business? Is it a brick and mortar business? But so what you're saying is you want to have something substantial that's not at the whims of the internet marketing trends.
Exactly.
Yeah, gotcha.
A lot of people in that circle are selling hopes and dreams.
I have an idea, spend a lot of money buying it, and then I get to go buy my Corvette or my Ferrari.
Exactly. I just push a button with a geyser thing or something, and so and that's not everybody. So I should say that's a pretty generalized statement, because there's some
we don't know anybody that's ever done that.
Oh, yeah, there's some people.
So you came out of SEO world, a lot of background in internet marketing. You've seen launches that have been successful. You've seen them that have failed. and
Right.
you're thinking, hey, I know one thing that's pretty consistently working, and I want to build a more traditional business that can really help people achieve some consistent results on the, we'll say, the press release, the online press release side of the business, because I know it has two functions. Maybe you can explain to us a little bit about how that works when you're
Yeah.
doing a video press release.
So my background also is, before, I ever got into internet marketing is I had a company called Benson Publishing, and we did PR and marketing and sales materials for the hospitality industry, and we did a lot of that, and then I kind of evolved into internet marketing. Um, so I wanted to stick with my core values. I wanted to say, what, not core values, but I guess core strengths really. And so I knew PR, and when I wanted to, when I was looking for my, my next big thing, it, where is there something that works, and where is there a vulnerability in the market?
Mm-hmm.
And that's why I went back to PR, because although PR is really competitive, it's kind of like book publishing, where book publishers, the big book publishers still operate on a 16th century model, where that they kind of dictate how you're going to publish your book and how you're going to do things, and as we all know, now there's all these people that are just independent publishers, with Amazon and things like that, that are just basically destroying the industry, and that's what happened with the record industry. And PR, as far as press release services, are very similar, where they've had this kind of embedded infrastructure that's really not flexible, and it's hard for them to kind of change and move. So when I looked at it, I said, well, what can I do that's really going to make this more modern, that's going to make it more relevant to people, and how people see things now, and where are they missing the boat? And so when I built out PRReach, I made it so it's super flexible. So if things work, then I'll keep them, and if they don't work, then I'll just throw them away. And so the whole platform is really built that way. And so some of the things that I thought press release companies don't do now is they really don't capitalize on social media, and video, because everything's just moving to video. I mean, I think they were saying now YouTube is actually passing up broadcast media as far as readership.
Wow.
So, and I think, in the next few years, it's going to be even more. So what I wanted to do is create a tool that wasn't, 100% SEO, relying on SEO. It wasn't 100% relying on, PR or journalists. It wasn't, relying on one certain thing. So it's really using multiple platforms, kind of a shock and awe kind of thing, where you hit them with a lot of different things, so that depending on what purpose you want to use it for, whether you want to contact journalists, or maybe I don't really outwardly, I don't think in any of my printed material I ever say that it has huge SEO value, just because there's companies out there that we won't talk about, like PRWeb, that said, hey, we're the SEO press release company, and then all of a sudden Google said, no, you're not, and then they actually de-index them for a couple of weeks or a month, and so I don't do that. So we're probably more SEO than anybody I know, just because it's my background, but I just don't ever preach that, because
So it's kind of like this, like, shh, don't tell anybody that we're really good at it.
And it's just one benefit. I mean, it's just I think that's a big mistake people make when they build a business that focuses on one thing, and they focus on one thing that relies on another platform, another system, or another something else, like whether it's some people are building entire businesses on Facebook advertising, which I think is great, and they're making a lot of money, but I guarantee you 6 years from now they're probably not going to be doing that, because Facebook might just on a whim make a change, and all of a sudden all that business dries up. So so what I wanted to do is put the most, apply the most things that I could into one single platform, and if new things pop up, then I can add them. So with the social media, so now as far as SEO is concerned, social mentions are a huge factor, and so what we did is we actually built out this social media network. So when we post a press release, it actually goes to all of these different social media venues, and you get links back, and you get mentions, but you also get but we also do it for traffic. So if Google went away, I'm not even really concerned about it, because we have so many other things that we do. with the video marketing is huge. So now you can take your video from a press release. And so what we do is every press release, we have a an anchor person in a newsroom that actually reads your press release. And then we take that press release and we embed it inside, or the video, and we embed that inside your press release. So, that's just one extra added benefit. So we like to say that we're the only press release company out there. Like every press release company in the world is somebody that has to write content that's talking about their stuff. We're the only press release company in the world that we're actually talking about you. And, from a psychological standpoint, having somebody else talk about you or pre-vet you, or somebody that's an authority figure talk about you, is way more effective than, you just saying, hey, look at me, look at my stuff, and I'm super awesome.
So it's bringing in some of that third party endorsement to add more traction to the press release.
Yeah, and if you're interested in a lot of speaker, author, expert type folks, they want they're looking to kind of build some authority branding, and and that's something you can do too, because you can take those videos, and if you have a media room, which I highly suggest, and I have a whole long story about how we kind of built my wife's business just on her media room, and journalists researching her specific niche, and so you can take that video and you can put it on your website, whether it's your media room or whatever, and now when people go to kind of check you out, there's somebody talking about you, and it kind of builds that brand authority. And then you can when your press releases are picked up by other media sources, you can use those logos from those other media sources, and I'm sure you've seen that before, as seen on CBS or CNN or whatever. And it doesn't have to be like you're actually sitting there talking to Walter Cronkite, or I guess that tells you how old I am. Like, how long has Walter Cronkite been on the air?
Dating yourself there.
Exactly, yeah.
I don't even know who the news anchors are anymore. Does it count if it's on the Ellen show?
Yeah, I don't even watch TV anymore. So.
I don't watch the news, that's for sure. But I think I do get what you're saying. It's really important to get those media mentions and being able to add that to your credibility. And it kind of brings me to a question that I had about this whole process, because I know the value of getting press releases. I've seen it work for the search engine optimization. I've had great results doing that. And I have gotten great results from media attention when we've done press releases in the past. So where do you think you should be in your business to take advantage of doing a press release system like this? Because I've heard different reasons you'd want to do a press release.
Right. So, probably the big three are, you do get, search engine visibility, actually maybe four, search and traffic. Then there is, authority branding, trying to build up your authority, and then, also is actual, just, visibility through, media contacts, and, getting interviewed, whether it's on the, in a newspaper article or radio or TV or whatever, or podcast,
right?
Even now podcasts are huge. So, I would say, Kathy, my wife, actually gets a lot of interviews just because she does press releases, and other people, about her being on a podcast. She'll do one before and then a follow up one after, or a hangout or a webinar or whatever. And other folks that have webinars and hangouts and podcasts will contact her. They'll see what she did and say, hey, she's great. She's great. On in front of the screen or on radio or whatever, and she's a good interview. So she adds value to to their site and to whatever the product is.
So then what you're saying is, if you're doing an interview, or maybe you're doing an event somewhere, that would be a good reason to do a press release. If you're doing some kind of a launch and introducing a new product line. But what I'm also hearing is, like, if you just want to drive some traffic and visibility to something you're doing all the time. So it doesn't have to be tied to a new thing. It could be something about maybe like a testimonial or a case study. Something's gotten some traction and you want to spotlight it?
Absolutely.
Okay.
And most people think, well, there's nothing about our business that really relates to a press release, or, we're too small, or, I mean, you could be a roofer, and, say, a great use for press releases are, making yourself, branding yourself as an expert. So
Mhm.
say, and this is off the top of my head. So say you're a roofer, and when they had all like the Hurricane Katrina stuff. So, so now this roofer can kind of, be the expert and talk about, how to protect your house, or what to do after, and what's the best ways, things like that. So there's always like kind of an angle, and I think a really great way is to, whatever your business is or whatever your market is. Some sources is go to Google News and type in, some keywords that are related to your business, or to, whatever your interest is, or your new book, or whatever, and see what's already in there, because those are the trending, that's the trending news, and those trending titles, which I always say, a title for a press release is probably 70-80% of your press release, because you just want a really good hook. You want something that's compelling, because even if, you're page one of whatever, for whatever your business is, if it just sounds really super boring or self-indulgent, then nobody's going to click on that link, and nobody's going to follow it. They're not going to check you out anymore. So your hooks, like, the most important thing.
So being able to be a good copywriter, an important part of getting your press releases out there.
It helps, and if not, just hire everyone.
Hmm.
Just tell, just say, hey, this is what I want, and we don't write press releases. We really focus on, the distribution aspect, and it's kind of a conflict too if we wrote press releases, and then because our editorial staff, pretty, because we're tier one syndication, which means, we have like Associated Press and LexisNexis, and so if we don't have a certain standard, then we'll get kicked out. So it'd be kind of a conflict for us to write a press release, and then we'll have somebody pay for it, and then we'll reject it.
All right. So Rob, just between me and you, have you ever had to reject someone's video press release because it was so bad?
Oh yeah, yeah.
So you won't let them all in.
I mean, it's bad for business. I should be saying, oh no, everybody, it's all, we accept everybody, but we really don't, and it's really in your best interest, because the better, the better quality your press release is, the more effective it's going to be, the more visibility you're going to have. So it's actually a good thing. We're doing you a favor.
Good. So you'll coach people a little bit and say, look, this isn't going to work. You need to get it written better or whatever, and just say, make it better before we can put it out.
We have an editorial guideline, and then we also, so when you sign up, you'll get like kind of a thank you email,
Hmm.
and there's one video that'll actually kind of walk you through the whole system and the whole process. And then we also have, links to, some articles you wrote, like on how to write a really good press release, and some,
Cool.
some ways that we think are more effective than others. And so, that helps out quite a bit. And then, yeah, so when you submit it, then we also, our editorial staff they'll give, if something isn't right, then they'll give you suggestions, say, hey, we think, you might want to try, look, go in this direction, or something like that. So.
I love this. This is fascinating. And I appreciate you giving us a little bit of behind the scenes how it works, because I know a lot of people hold back from doing press releases when they could really benefit from it because they're intimidated, or they think it's going to be too hard, or they don't know what to do. So it sounds like if you're using PRReach.com, that you're actually able to get a lot of assistance and guidelines to make the process easier. And that allows you to get the results you're paying for when you're paying for the press release, right?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And right now too, we're about, the average tier one press release is around $300, and right, and they don't have video, and they don't have a social media component, and we're about a quarter of that right now. So it's a pretty good deal, and it's a good way to, if you want to, kind of dip your toes in, then it's not that big of a, not that big of a deal. So.
Yeah, I've been pretty impressed with the pricing on what you guys are doing. So I love, love, love it. So Rob, I want to like take a step back and go behind the curtains a little bit, because you have brought a new business out in the last couple years, right? It's been
Yes.
pretty new.
Yeah.
And I know in startup mode, there's a lot of unique things you face. Even though you've been in business for a really long time, you're not a new entrepreneur. You have a new venture that you're getting out in the world. What would you say has been one of the biggest challenges in getting a new business like this off the ground and making it profitable and successful?
Um, for me, it's, there's just a lot of different hats.
Hmm.
And in this specific instance, I, I actually had a partner in the beginning, and he was really more of a developer coder, and so he was going to kind of manage the development team. And laterally, I was the idea and the marketing guy, and so I was going to build out the the marketing um, and kind of drive the traffic laterally. And he had an illness in the family, and he kind of had to step down. So all of a sudden, I jumped in and I'm managing the development team, and I'm not doing any marketing. And it was really that way for about a year and a half. And so now and which was in a way great for me, because that was something that wasn't really my world or my language. I actually had a background in computer science. It's funny because I had one degree in design, art and design, and the other one was computer science. And it was kind of this weird artistic creative contradiction. but I never really did any coding or development. And so that was a huge challenge for me, just to even speak the language and try to get people to do things, because I was thinking in a whole different mindset the way I thought. And so once we got there, now I have a new skill set. And so I would say probably the biggest attribute that you need to have is this really flexibility, is because it's very rare where you're not going to start a startup business, especially something that's kind of not really ever been out there before, and you're not just going to just take a big missile hit to the bow, and it's really how you react to that missile hit, that most people are just like, oh, this is hard, I quit, but you just really have to be flexible. So
I love that you said that, because this morning I had to write an email to a client. I coach and mentor entrepreneurs and business owners, and I have a client who's getting a new program out there, and he's like, oh, I got to change this and I got to do this, and I'm going in a new direction. I said, stop. You have to remember that, this phase of starting something up is all about, I use the word adaptability. Mm-hmm. But it's really tempting to get frustrated and think it's not working, instead of realizing what, like you just said, like you just got to get flexible. You've got to figure out, how do I flow with where things are going while continuing to go after, the goal and get things done. Right. And I think you're dead on with that.
And I think, and this is probably contrary to what a lot of folks would say as far as entrepreneurs or business people, but I think it's probably more relevant in the internet marketing world, as you see just a lot of people, they just plan and plan and plan and plan, and by the time they're done, planning and ready to pull the lever, like that whole process has probably changed and evolved. So I'm really big on having, I like to really get a focus group. I'll get a bunch of people that are really, really smart together, and maybe have a workation where it's been a long weekend or a week, and we just hash out a really loosely structured master plan. And then as we build out and develop the business or the process, then it evolves. And I believe it's much more efficient, because the mistakes you make are going to tell you exactly the direction you need to go, much more so than assuming how you're going to do things correctly.
That's great. I love that. And I think in the startup phase, that's critical. I learned a long time ago this term called the 80% plan. Have you ever heard of that?
No.
And that's what you're saying is, you get the plan 80% figured out. You kind of get the master plan, get the main chunks down, and then you got to get going, because half of the rest of it is going to get figured out as you go, especially if you've never done it before. Because there's so many things you're learning. You don't really know how long they're going to take. And I see a lot of people, they let themselves get really stuck, because they're like, well, I don't know how to do the rest of it. I'm like, well, just jump in. You gotta swim in and figure it out as you go.
Yeah. You're just not going to, just kind of like when we started, we divvied up, the tasks. There was going to be developer and I was going to be marketer, and then, that didn't happen. So you just kind of bob and weave and evolve and change and grow. And in the long run, I think you have, really a much more efficient and well-structured company that way.
I don't know if you can see this.
It says, just put on your big girl underpants and yeah, I get it.
Well, I mean, they wouldn't be big girl underpants for you, but I think that's what you're saying. Somebody gave this to me a long time ago. I love it. I keep it right here on my computer. But it's like, really, you gotta put the big boy, big girl underpants on and just like do it. Get over it and make it happen.
Get her done.
Yeah, that's funny. So along the way, you've shared a strategy this works, and I don't know if you had another one you want to share, but I love that you talked about just getting a plan in motion, talked about the challenge. But did you find, and maybe you might call it an aha moment, or maybe there was kind of a game-changing, turnaround moment where you realized something and it just, it kind of changed everything for you, made it easier, allowed you to kind of get more in flow, maybe.
Yes, I think so. Coming from the SEO world, um, most things we did were tactic based, meaning, we would have this cool little, whiz-a-gig, software that could do this thing that would help us rank, or we would, you know, create a plugin, or we would do this one system, or we would capitalize on this one area of a search engine vulnerability, and most people would build a business on that. And really, now I'm much more strategy based. I like to look at, and especially in the planning phase, is look at what is the end result of my company. So I want to look at my company. This is what it looks like when it's finished. When it's when we're making 10 million and above, and then I work backwards. And tactics are things that help you get to your strategy, but tactics are not the strategy. And that was a really a big thing for me to learn, and it took me 15 years. So,
And how did you learn that, Rob? Like, did somebody tell you? Did you have a mentor? Did you see someone else doing it? Did you finally just like something changed in your environment? Like, what? How
uh,
did you get to that place? Because a lot of people struggle with that.
yeah, I think I just quit hitting myself in the head with a shovel, and then so
That sounds
um,
painful.
yeah, and it's just, my brain was just all numb. I think it was just a realization. I started really kind of as my circle of people that I associated with, and my kind of my core influencers changed and evolved. That I started looking, I started meeting people that really did stuff, and a couple of my friends actually have businesses that are like above the 100 million a year level,
Hmm.
and I just started asking them questions, and how, what were their processes, and how do they think, and how do they do things. And none of them cared about any of the all the exciting little stuff that when you start in a business and you see all this stuff, you're like, oh, I got to get that thing. And they don't care about any of that. They those are things that people that that work for them may or may not implement, but they look at that big picture, and how do I get to this big picture, and then they work their way backwards. And all of them do that. I mean, it's not like some do and some don't, and some got lucky and some didn't. All the people that operate on that level, they said, this is, this, when they set out and said, this is, this is where I want to be, and how do I get there? And then they work backwards, and that's a strategy. That's how do I get to how do I get to, point Z, when I'm at point A, and then they just, they work their way through. So for me, it was really just learning from people that were much smarter than me. And that's, I would say, probably the best thing you can do is always try to be the dumbest guy in the room, or dumbest person in the room, I should say. Um, if I get invited to a mastermind, it used to be kind of fun, because I go to a mastermind, and everybody would sit around in a circle, and he'd ask me questions, and it blew up my ego, and I thought, oh, that's great. But how does that really help? How does that raise your bar? So when you go to a mastermind, or you associate with people that just kind of make you're just like, holy cow, man. I was like, why is this guy even talking to me? Because I should be parking his car, or working as his valet or something. Then those are the people that are going to raise the bar, and get you to where you need to go, and take you to that next step and the next level. And that's something too about business. I'm sorry, go ahead.
No, I was just gonna say that's exactly what worked for me. So I'm glad you brought that up.
And most people think businesses, when they start, it's like they're going to start here, and it's just going to be kind of this slow ascension, like a ramp. And it's not. I mean, it's really more
It's
like,
like
like yeah, it's like
this.
it's like go up and you skyrocket, and then you kind of plateau out, and then you hit a wall, and then you have to go, okay, so how do I get to that next level? And that's really how working backwards really helps out, I think. And so
It's great.
yeah.
That's great.
And eventually, once you get big, then it does kind of look like, just a slow slope because it's just a bunch of little steps that you just kept hitting, going up and down. So
Yeah, I want to like have a little chart made that captures that because I love that visual of where you see sometimes the infographics and the little image quotes and stuff, and a lot of times people will say this is what it looks like. It's all jaggedy in different
yeah,
directions.
but then when you look at it, stretched out from completion, then it's like a smooth line up. But when you're starting out, it's you may get a little boost and then it may plateau and then all of a sudden you just hit a mountain, and then but in the big scheme of things, it's just a little bump, and then in a huge scheme of things, it's not even perceptible. So.
Well, that reminds me of a cool mantra that I always keep in mind, but I'm curious, do you have a mantra or a quote that keeps you inspired and engaged when you're having those bumps in the road and the dips going down instead of up?
Yeah, it's so corny. It really is, but
You're allowed to be corny.
yeah,
We'll accept cheesy today.
if you could go on YouTube too, and it's a video from like I think it's Rocky 1000 or something, but and it's talking, and Rocky's talking about, it's not how hard you hit, it's how hard, you can take a hit and keep hitting back. And, and it's, for me, that's really true because I'm pretty dense. So, I need to take a lot of hits before, before I get my shot in. So,
That's good though. And it's about being determined, and having the resilience and the strength to keep getting back up. And I've been interviewed several times on what it takes to become an entrepreneur, especially coming out of the corporate market. And one of the things I say is like, if you don't have resilience, don't even start. Because I've been doing this 14 years now, and I have had lots of ups, but I've had some pretty massive downs. And if you don't have that resilience, you've got to be able to bounce back.
and I honestly believe that you just can't lose. I mean, if you just keep doing it, don't, you have to learn from whatever mistake you made, because if you just keep making a mistake, you're just going to, kind of perpetually be doing that same thing. But, if you do kind of take that hit, then you learn from it, and it's tuition. You look at it like that's tuition in business life. And now not to do that one thing anymore, and then you go on to the next thing. And so for me, it's almost impossible to lose. It's almost impossible not to succeed. You just keep every time you have something like that, then you learn and you don't do it. And I think a lot of things that I learned that would be just kind of disastrous for some people in their mindset help me out, because as I start playing on different, bigger fields, I've learned those lessons. And so I know not to make those same mistakes, later on when it would cost me a lot more. So,
Absolutely.
So to me, I'm almost grateful for them sometimes.
So you could have your junior college investment in your learnings instead of the Princeton or the the Harvard Law School tuition fee.
In my case, it was kind of the short bus.
Let's keep those investments as small as possible, but use them wisely, right?
Yeah, exactly.
So, Rob, what's coming up next for you? What are you excited about? What's the next steps for getting PRReach out there in the world?
Yeah, well, now it's for me, it's the fun part, because now it's marketing and growing, and as I get more, as as I build my client base, I get more feedback. So now I know, what are the new things that I need to add. So for me now, it's all fun stuff. So.
Cool. I have to say, I absolutely love that you said it's all fun stuff. It's the marketing. Do you know how many people I coach who say, I hate the marketing? So,
that's my favorite thing. I mean, because
great.
For me, it's my passion is, and it almost just doesn't really matter what it is, but it's like taking something that's an idea, and small, and just through, just sweat equity and smart and working hard, gaining that momentum and making it into something large. And that's really what drives me for anything. So it's not I don't you see a lot of those internet marketers, and they're on Facebook, and they're driving Maseratis, wearing pimp hats and stuff like that. I'm not a big stuff guy, but I am about just kind of creating energy and making something that's going to make the world a better place. That's really what drives me. So.
I love it. And I think that's why I pick a lot of people to come on the podcast here is the people who they're making a difference, and by helping other people make their businesses work better, or by sharing what works to make your business work better, that's how we get to inspire and influence others to get their gift out in the world and make a bigger difference. So it's kind of this nice big ripple effect. And I highly recommend, if you are not doing press releases or you haven't picked up video press releases, check out the link right here on the screen. Go get enrolled in PRReach.com. This is a really fabulous tool, and I got to tell you, the prices on this are mind-blowing. So it's a great way to get your feet wet and get some great traction. I've had so much great luck with web related press releases, and I know some people that are getting smash hits with PRReach. So thanks, Rob, for coming on and sharing it with us and sharing your tool with everybody and helping more people get their message out in a bigger way.
Hey, thanks so much for having me on.
You got it. And as you're listening in today, be sure to give us a quick shout out on the blog here or wherever you're listening. I'd love to hear your thoughts. What's something you can put into action right away? Because optimizing isn't about what it is that it's about what you're taking action on and what you're allowing to make things more simplified. And this is one of those great tools that I highly recommend to do that. All right, everybody, we'll see you again next week. Bye-bye.